It's not a niche weapon system like some other weapons that we have.
This carrier is absolutely vast, 1,106 feet in length.
In this case, this is a very versatile weapon. It can be used against a variety of targets.
Do you know which is the most powerful aircraft carrier ever built? Owned by the U.S. military, the USS Gerald R Ford carrier was again in the news when the Israel-Palestine conflict escalated. After a surprise attack on Israel by Hamas on October 7th escalated the decades-long conflict in the region, U.S. Defence Secretary Lloyd Austin ordered the USS Gerald R Ford carrier strike group to sail to the eastern Mediterranean to assist Israel if the need arose. The deployment reflects the United States' steadfast support of Israel and its desire to deter any further regional expansion of the conflict. The U.S. maintains ready forces globally to further reinforce this deterrence posture if required, Austin said in a statement. The $18 billion nuclear-powered USS Gerald R Ford is the United States Navy's newest and most advanced aircraft carrier yet and has capabilities that dwarf anything any other military force in the world, let alone Hamas or any other Palestinian fighting force, can boast of. Let's look at some interesting facts about the USS Gerald R Ford carrier. The biggest warship ever constructed is the USS Gerald R Ford. Measuring from the flight deck, it is 337 meters long, 78 meters wide, and 76 meters high. To put things into perspective, the Qutb Miner in Delhi is just 72 meters high. If measured lengthwise, more than 4.5 Qutb miners might fit on the deck of the USS Gerald R Ford. Additionally, while operating at full capacity, it moves 100,000 tons, or about 4 times the amount of steel needed to build the Howrah Bridge. How big is the USS Gerald R Ford? Due to its size, the carrier can accommodate up to 90 aircraft, which includes the F-35 fifth generation, the FA-18 Super Hornet, the E-2D Advanced Hawkeye, the EA-18G Growler electronic attack aircraft, the MH-60 RS helicopters, and several uncrewed aerial vehicles. Over 4,500 crew members are required to perform all tasks on board the carrier. This number includes those who operate the ship, staff members in the air wing, and other support personnel. Do you know that the USS Gerald R Ford carrier is very agile for its size? Despite its size, the aircraft carrier is remarkably agile. With a top speed of over 30 knots, that is 56 kilometers, the Ford-class carrier can keep up with much smaller vessels. This is due to the power generated by its 2 A-1B nuclear reactors, offering 250% more electrical capacity than the Nimitz class, which is the U.S.'s previous generation of carriers. These reactors have a life cycle of 25 years. Aircraft carriers are both expensive and offensive weapons that represent the strength of a country's armed forces. This indicates that Gerald R Ford, like all aircraft carriers, always travels under the protective cover of a carrier strike group, CSG, despite its aircraft and onboard defense systems. A cruiser, 2 frigates or destroyers, plus a supply ship make up a typical U.S. CSG. A CSG may occasionally take pride in having 1 or more submarines. The USS Normandy cruiser and the USS Thomas Hudner, USS Ramage, USS Carney, USS Roosevelt, and USS Gerald R Ford destroyers have been dispatched to the eastern Mediterranean by the U.S. Named for former U.S. President Gerald R Ford, 1913 to 2006, who enlisted in the U.S. Navy during the Pearl Harbor attack on December 7, 1941, the aircraft carrier went into service in 2017. Ford saw duty in the Pacific Theater while serving on board the aircraft carrier USS Monterey as an assistant navigator, athletic officer, and anti-aircraft battery officer. During a memorial service for the recently died Ford on January 3, 2007, then Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared that the newest aircraft carrier being developed would bear Ford's name. Is the Ford class the last of the United States Navy's aircraft carriers? The USS Gerald R Ford, CVN-78, the newest and largest nuclear-powered supercarrier ever built, is now headed home after an extended deployment to the waters of the Mediterranean. The warship is the lead vessel of a new class of United States Navy aircraft carriers that will replace the aging Nimitz class on a one-for-one basis over the coming decades. Featuring greater automation, which allows the ship to operate with a smaller crew, CVN-78 is also among the most advanced warships ever built. As the largest warship ever constructed in terms of displacement, USS Gerald R Ford is an impressive vessel that will likely serve as a power projection throughout the world for decades to come. Yet even as she is loaded with new and innovative technologies, there have remained issues with numerous systems that haven't exactly worked as planned. From the ship's toilets, which regularly clog, to the ordnance elevators that didn't function properly. Numerous systems have had serious teething issues that need to be resolved. Given those problems, it would be easy to dismiss the carrier as a huge money pit in the water and perhaps even suggest that CVN-78 is actually a bad carrier. The bigger question is whether the Gerald R Ford class could end up being the end of the line for true aircraft carriers. So is this the end of this kind of aircraft carriers? It is worth noting that it has only been about a century since the United States Navy first began to operate carriers, and at the time, many naval leaders still saw the battleship as the dominant surface combatant. Fast forward to today, and no one operates anything close in size to battleships, and the closest is Russia's aging Soviet-era battlecruisers that never quite delivered on their promise. Simply put, guided missile destroyers can fill the same role of the old big-gun battleships while being quicker to build, cheaper to operate, and requiring a significantly smaller crew. Aircraft carriers may not be so easy to replace. Few warships can do what carriers can do, notably in being a floating airbase. Yet, a major concern is that a supercarrier could be really a big target. The old fear was from enemy aircraft and submarines, but the threat now includes hypersonic missiles, undersea uncrewed vehicles, UUVs, and uncrewed aerial vehicles, UAVs. Low-tech threats remain a concern as well, as was seen on October 12, 2000, when suicide terrorists exploded a small boat alongside the USS Cole. It wouldn't really take all that much to do considerable damage to such a high-value target. In addition, the systems are now so complex that they could even be targeted in a cyber attack. The question is whether the United States Navy needs such a massive floating airbase that faces so many threats. The biggest argument against a nuclear-powered carrier is that it really isn't an efficient system. Yes, such a vessel has nearly unlimited range, yet the endurance is only as great as the food and water it can carry. A ship that can stay at sea indefinitely is good, until one considers that it still needs to be supplied with fuel for the aircraft and food for the crew. Massive vessels that have such massive crews could be just as susceptible to another pandemic. What about maintenance? Then there is the fact that even the regular maintenance of these supercarriers takes months, and there is little indication that this will be improved on CVN-78 or the other Gerald R Ford class flat tops. Moreover, the mid-life refueling of the nuclear reactors takes the ships out of service for years. The United States Navy may have 11 nuclear-powered carriers in its fleet, but rarely are more than 5 or 6 deployed at any one time. Yet the biggest consideration on why these new supercarriers are just a bad idea is that there seems to be little planning for their end of life. Even as the cost to construct the next ships in the class has fallen, there are the billions of dollars that the Navy will have to pay to eventually dispose of these vessels. It was reported that it could take more than a decade and a half to fully dismantle and scrap USS Enterprise, CVN-65, the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, while the price tag could be more than $1.5 billion. Even once the issues with CVN-65 are addressed, the Navy will have to deal with the Nimitz-class carriers, and the new Ford class will be replaced on a one-for-one basis. This issue isn't likely to get better with the newest carriers being built. Each may be impressive, but the Gerald R Ford class carriers take years to build, cost a not-so-small fortune, require massive maintenance, and will take years to dismantle. Perhaps it would be wiser to update the conventionally powered Kitty Hawk class and complement them with more America-class amphibious assault ships, LHDs, which would be better suited to a potential war in the Indo-Pacific. Each of those flat tops would be cheaper to build, we could build more of them, and they'd be easier to retire when the time comes. And they aren't a nuclear disaster waiting to happen should a terrorist get lucky. What do you think of the USS Gerald R Ford carrier? Will it play a major role in the ongoing tensions involving Russia and Israel? Tell us in the comments below. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it entertaining, then don't forget to hit that like button below. And if you want to stay updated with more great content like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel and just ringing the notification bell so you never miss any future content from us. Your support means the world to us.